You are now listening to the War Report Podcast Network.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to College Loop Podcast. I'm Dylan, everybody on Twitter, here to talk to you today about the underrated Tigers on this Auburn football team. Of course, the season is officially, at the time of recording this, 100 days away. But of course, as the video comes out, we are 99 days away from Auburn football being back on our screen, even less time for just college football in general being back on our screens, and the joyous time, which is that football season. Now, when I went into making this list, I went through a couple of factors. I went through guys that I'm aware of that I think people should be more aware of going forward. I think there are guys that haven't been talked about nearly enough, whether that be because of the other talent in their position group or just overall, I think there's being overlooked. And there's an array of talent on this. I have 2 defense and 2 offense. I thought about putting a kicker on here, but I think we pretty much know what Auburn's gotten kicking, because Hudson Cack and Alex McPherson are absolutely ridiculous at what they do. So starting off with the defensive side of the ball, and my number 4 guy on this list, a transfer coming in from Western Kentucky, also coming out from Texas A&M a couple years ago. But sorry, wrong one. Dallas Walker IV. There we go. I just got a little spoiler to who the next guy was. Dallas Walker IV is on my list for most underrated Tigers going into this 2025 football season. And again, this comes down to, I think there's just so much talent in the group that he could be overlooked. You bring in Jordan Crawford, you're bringing in guys like Autry and Antonio Coleman, all those guys from the freshman level stepping up. And then you bring in those guys back, Bobby Travis. You got guys like Zacchaeus Walker coming back, Malik Blockton coming back. You have all of those guys, and you brought in the transfer in Dallas Walker, who I think could very well end up being a starter, or at least very much so could start a few games for Auburn going down into the season. Last year, or just in general, for his career at Western Kentucky, 58 tackles, 4.5 TFLs. And then while he was at Texas A&M during the 2020 and 21 seasons, had 30 tackles, 1 sack, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. So, sorry, wrong thing. They didn't put his stats on here for his Texas A&M seasons. That was at his high school year. But what I see in Dallas Walker is a talented nose guard. Of course, with him being 6'3", 327 pounds, going to be a guy you use to load the box and to help fill up gaps in your run game. That way, when you play against these teams that like to run the ball a lot, look at Kentucky, look at Arkansas, look at what Alabama kind of did last year outside of throwing a 4 vertical play every other time. You have teams that want to run the football. Georgia, one of those teams, they're going to want to run the ball more often than not, and you need those big bodies up front. And Jordan Crawford is going to be really good, but is he ready to go right now as that run stuffer? I think Dallas Walker definitely not been talked about enough. I think he made quite a few plays at 8A. Sorry, if that's with 8A, and even got himself a sack in that too. So he's a nose guard who can rush the passer. Which you go back to previous years, Auburn did not have a nose tackle who could get in the backfield like that. So whether or not it was just an off day for the O-line or whether or not he's just that good, something to look forward to going forward is a guy who can do all that and more from what you ask of him as a nose guard. So I definitely think he's one of those guys you can think about as not getting enough credit going into this season. But again, a lot of talent on this Auburn defensive line. Now, number 3, the one I accidentally spoiled going forward, is Darrell Robinson, the transfer running back out of UConn. Coming into Auburn will be a sophomore back, but 12 games as a redshirt freshman at UConn in 2024, rushed for 731 yards and 8 touchdowns. And his best games, of course, were against FAU, where he rushed for 156, and against Rice for 132. And during his redshirt season, did have 166 yards rushing on the season and a touchdown. And of course, he was a former 4-star recruit. So I look at Darrell Robinson here. I mean, you look at Damari Alston. We're already aware Damari Alston will go into the season as the number 1 back. Jeremiah Cobb will more than likely be the guy right behind him. Alvin Henderson, in waiting to see what he does in the future. Now, Darrell Robinson did not really get a chance to really do much at 8A because of an injury, so you didn't really get to see a lot of Darrell Robinson. But from the talent that he showed off at UConn, I think if he could transfer that over behind this Auburn offensive line, which is going to be absolutely ridiculous this year, per literally everybody who's been watching this offensive line kind of grow and develop over the spring, and of course the guys you're bringing in going forward. Darrell Robinson definitely could be a guy who could sneak his way up into being that starting running back. I think he possesses that talent. He has the workhorse mentality that, Damari definitely has. I don't know if Jeremiah quite has it yet. So it'll be interesting to see how the stable kind of gets its share of carries. I mean, even got to try to find ways to get a redshirt freshman and Alvin Henderson his fair share in 4 games. Which, I mean, those 4 games are probably going to be Ball State, South Alabama, and Mercer, or at least that's 3 of them. I don't think you're going to see him in anything else outside of that. But I think Darrell Robinson definitely is a guy who could impress coaches once he is fully healthy, and with his speed and strength and agility as just a do-it-all back, he could find himself as a key contributor in this offense. And Jeremiah Cobb is your speed back. Damari Alston will be more of your power back more so. I think you're going to see Damari go up the middle more often than you see Cobb, which at least that's how it should be. But I think Darrell has the positives to do both. Which, I mean, if he doesn't get the job, he doesn't get the job. But he'll definitely be in the thick of it for the next season. But Damari and Cobb right now are your 2 starters. But got to watch out for Darrell going forward. Up next is a name that I love to talk about on this show. If you've definitely heard me talk about the wide receiver room, you've heard this name a couple of times. But I think he's a guy who doesn't really get all of the love that he probably should because of the other guys that are in this room. You bring up Eric Singleton, the transfer, you bring in Cam Coleman coming back, Perry Thompson, Malcolm Simmons, Bryce Kane getting his shot this year. You got all that talent. You got Sam Turner coming up here. Yeah, Derek and Eric Smith are going to be that are, I think, on our campus now. If not, then later on. But the one guy who I don't think is getting enough love is Horatio Fields, the wide receiver out of Wake Forest, one of those big-time transfers Auburn was able to bring in alongside Eric Singleton. Last year for the Demon Deacs, 39 catches, 463 yards, and 4 tutties. Also had 5 catches for 54 yards in 2023, and did not really see much action out in 21 and 22. But whenever you look at a guy like Horatio Fields and watching the tape on him, I mean, nothing really stands out highlight-wise. Like he's not going to be your, throw him on a streak route and watch what happens, or, he's not going to try to break anybody's ankles on a route. From what I saw from his highlights at Wake Forest, of course, I'm not going to sit down and watch a Wake Forest game because I value my mental health, but which I'm wearing a Robbie Ashford jersey right now, but they'll be fun to watch going forward. And this kind of like a hit as to why he was on this list. Horatio Fields last year for the Demon Deacs was a safety blanket wide receiver. He was a guy you throw on a little out route, in route, slant, hitch, curl, all of that, zig. Every single route that was made to get someone open, he ran that route because whenever he got a little sliver of openness away from coverage, he was going to make the catch. From curls to like 5-yard outs, 10-yard outs in the end zone, Horatio Fields is probably, the possessor of the best hands on the team until proven otherwise, because of just what I saw from him last year in the top plays that he had. Of course, Eric Singleton is on that list. Cam Coleman did have his fair share of drops early in the year, but definitely fixed that as the season progressed, developed into what could be considered now as a top 5 wide receiver in the SEC. And Horatio Fields adds to Auburn being the top wide receiver room in the SEC. So I think Horatio Fields going to this year, I think he's going to be a guy you have to go on the field alongside like a guy like Brandon Frazier or some of those tight ends that you can really trust to get the ball. But here's the thing, Horatio Fields is just a tight end. He has tight end hands and a wide receiver body. So he really works out well for Auburn in that case. And I really think that he is going to be a nice little check down receiver. And that's where he's probably going to get a lot of his yards this year, is being that guy like on a 3rd and short, 2nd and short, goal line situation, red zone situation, coming in at 6'2", 200 pounds. He's going to be, he can win some 50-50 balls. And he did that at Wake Forest. And I think he can do it at Auburn. I think he's a guy who doesn't get talked about enough because of the talent Auburn already has in that wide receiver room. But you got to talk about the whole room. Horatio Fields is an absolute dog. And he is going to make some catches this year. He is going to make some catches this year going forward. So Horatio Fields, number 2 on my list. Now, number 1 is a guy who I talk about extensively. I consider him underrated because I don't think people talk about him enough, but he definitely does have some viral pictures or moments recently that came up on Twitter /X, whichever one you want to call it. And a guy who, again, I don't think he's being overshadowed by the room he's in, but definitely with the names that are there, could find himself like not being talked about as thorough as he probably should be. And that guy is, of course, one Champ Anthony. Now, Champ Anthony was one of my favorite pickups Auburn got out of the JUCO ranks a couple years ago, because of watching a guy who's smaller in size just do the things he was able to do, even in the JUCO ranks. He's a guy who was 180 pounds, 5'10", 5'11", and was laying the boom on people. And 2023 kind of came and gone. He didn't. We saw him. He was in every game, but only really had like a tackle, I think, that season, or not a lot of tackles at that. But when the 2024 season started, I mean, it was expected he was probably going to be the guy that comes in and plays the nickel role, and he did that. And 6 tackles versus New Mexico, and then Arkansas happened, and dude was on fire for the first quarter that he was in. He was on fire. He was doing everything possible. It was in the making, a SEC player, defensive player of the week type game coming out of Champ Anthony, a wake up call for this Auburn defensive backcourt, and then leg snapped. And again, I think this is a moment where everyone kind of like opened their eyes and saw Champ Anthony as this absolute dog of a corner who, is smaller than everybody on the field, although smaller than wide receivers on the field, but he is not afraid to get in your face. He's not afraid to make a play. And it's pretty much all he was missing out of his first quarter he was playing. I mean, that's all what he needed was a pick, and then he would have been gone. And that would have been the moment right there for him. But that broken leg really sent Auburn into a tizzy, and that kind of was I don't want to say it was a spark, but it definitely contributed to Auburn having to rely on these younger guys to get in there. And, they kick some of the older guys out, i.e. Keontae Scott. And you find a nice little balance of DBs that work. Caleb Harris kind of steps into that star role. I do think he'll be playing more of a safety, and I think that's where Champ Anthony comes to play as the star. And again, I think that the underratedness that I'm going with here isn't the fact that he's like flying under the radar. I think a lot of people pretty much know who Champ Anthony is, but I think it's mostly the fact that, you have a guy who is coming off of a very serious injury. You break your leg. The questions are surrounding you in terms of how healthy will you be when the season starts. And I mean, there's no telling if Champ Anthony is going to be like 100% healthy going into the season. But I think once he gets to that point, he's going to be a guy you're throwing in there right away. And he is going to be a household name in this defensive back room for the foreseeable future, which, I mean, class-wise, 2 years. But definitely, Champ Anthony, one of my favorite players. Probably not the most underrated player, but to me, I think he is. Because I don't think he gets talked about whenever you have guys like Kyan Lee, Jay Crawford, Caleb Harris, Terrence Love, all these guys in this defensive back room that are just so good. Rayon Strader, Blake Woodby coming in, Eric Winters, Anquan Fegans. The names can go on and on and on and on and on. You got a lot of talent in the defensive back room. And I think because of Champ Anthony come off of injury, it kind of plays into that role of him being an underdog going to this year. You already were one coming from the JUCO, stepping up to the SEC. You made some plays, got hurt. How will you respond going forward? But definitely Champ Anthony is my guy for the most underrated Auburn Tiger going into this upcoming season. Now, of course, let me know who you think is most underrated player for Auburn Tigers going into the season. There were a few names I was throwing around beforehand, before I recorded the show. There was guys such as like Amaris Williams I thought about Mason Murphy, but I think because the O-line is getting a lot of hype right now, I don't really think he plays into that right now. I wasn't going to say a quarterback. I think everyone pretty much is all on board on the quarterbacks. But, some of these backups that were freshmen last year that you're now going to see play this year, guys like DJ Barber, Joe Phillips, I think are going to be really good in this linebacker rotation going forward. Auburn didn't really try. They picked up like one linebacker in this like past recruiting cycle, a transfer portal cycle. But other than that, I think they're pretty content with what they have going forward into this year. And this is, of course, a year that Hugh Freeze is knowledgeable of how much he needs to put on the field going into this year. And, of course, that might be a conversation for Sunday. We'll see. We'll play it by ear. But that is my list for the most underrated Tigers going into the 2025 football season. Again, we are 99 days away from Auburn football running out into Waco, take on the Baylor Bears. Let me know who you think is the most underrated Tiger on this team. Who do you think deserves more love? Who do you think is the most overrated Tiger? Let me know that. Let's get a little spicy in the comment section. But of course, we're going to go a quick little break. Other side of this break, we're going to talk about what's been going on in other Auburn athletics or Auburn sports around this time. Of course, Auburn Baseball getting ready for the SEC tournament. And of course, Auburn Basketball potentially picking up one more transfer to round out their roster. So stay tuned, and we shall be right back. Are you tired of having to rummage through just clothes after clothes after clothes looking for something to wear? Are you tired of your friends making fun of you for your terrible fashion sense? Well, do we have the shirt for you? Go to thewarreport.com, get your laptop out and do it right now. Go to the shop and get your very own Feelin' Loopy t-shirt as well as your college loop hat, and you can get both of them for only $25 each. Plus shipping and handling, of course. But with that, now back to your regular scheduled program. Of course, it's available on thewarreport.com. Go to the shop and you can find your Feelin' Loopy merch. Of course, 5 different colorways for both items, the hat and the t-shirt. Go check those out today. $25 each for each item, not for both items. $50 for both items. But of course, the merch is only one way to support the channel. The best way to support the channel is, of course, by liking the video, by subscribing to the channel. Getting us to 1,000 subscribers would be so very cool. We're trying to make that milestone for so long. Can't wait to hit it. Giveaway coming up whenever that happens, more than likely. And, of course, don't forget, comment on the video. Let me know who you think is the most underrated or overrated Tiger going into this upcoming football season. Let me know in the comment section below as we continue. And don't forget, whenever you talk about the show, don't forget to use hashtag Feelin' Loopy. That's feeling without the G, Feelin' Loopy, to let us know you're enjoying and watching the show. So, continue on with the remainder of today's episode. Auburn Baseball will get the first nod. Again, I'm not the most knowledgeable of baseball. All I know right about now is Auburn is absolutely killing it. Freshmen are going off. The guys who came back for another year are going off. Ike Irish is going to be a top 10 draft pick. And they are getting ready to take on Texas A&M today due to a delayed game. The weather happened and pushed Auburn's game from yesterday to today. And they'll be taking on the Texas A&M Aggies at 11 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time. The 14-seeded Texas A&M, who are fresh off of a 9-0 win over the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Of course, Auburn, not the best track record in Hoover. They tend to kind of fall off a little bit. But I think Auburn has plenty of leeway here to make it pretty far in the SEC tournament. Of course, beating Texas A&M would also mean going forward and playing against LSU, a team you have beaten earlier in the year. Absolutely demolished them at that too. You got them over in a 3-game sweep over the Go Tigers, the Geoks Tigers. So yeah, going forward, and of course, you're waiting on who to see those games up ahead. Florida and Ole Miss will be playing each other. I think. It looks like they're playing today, or are they playing as I'm recording this? They must be. They must be. Let me check my. I'm currently recording this at 11:37 at night, so there's a good chance that there's a game going on today that I am not aware of off the top of my head. You're seeing this live as a 7. They are playing right now. And it's currently bottom of the 7th. Ole Miss is up 3-1. So Ole Miss potentially playing against Arkansas on Friday, getting ready for the winner of Texas A&M or Auburn versus LSU. So that will do it for baseball. Just a little update on that. I can't go into a full game preview. I'm just letting you know where you can watch Auburn Baseball. Of course, the SEC Network. Check it out. Support the Tigers. Of course, they're one of the best teams in the country right now. One of the best teams in the SEC right now, and one of the hottest teams in baseball. So, shout out to Auburn Baseball. And now, rounding out the show, Auburn men's basketball still trying to add one more guy from the portal or signing or however international players recruiting works. I know there's still some paperwork that needs to be filed through, but Filip Jovic from Serbia, 6'9", 6'8", forward, averaged 12.2 points, 3.9 rebounds, about a 1.5 assists, and about half a block in 22 minutes per game last year for KK Mega BMAX. Just another guy to bring another big man that you needed. Of course, you picked up a couple, but you still got a lot of spots. There's a lot of holes to fill up going into this upcoming season. Of course, you're still trying to hold off and see what happens with Jahad. Of course, Jahad right now is listed as an early second-round draft pick, which, if you ask me, if I'm being torn with a second-round draft pick in the NBA draft, I'm coming back to college. If you ask me, I might be a little selfish in that. But if you're not a top 20 pick in the first round, odds are you're going to be in the G League for a while. And what if you're in the G League for a couple years? What's that? I mean, that's just like going to college for a few more years. Again, might be a little selfish, but I want Todd Pettiford back in an Auburn uniform next season. I think he just adds that next level to any team he's on. And I mean, dude, he's absolutely ridiculous. He is an absolute dog. Believe me. If he comes back, I will probably be getting a Jahad jersey. I meant to get a Janai Broom jersey last year, but I will be getting a Jahad jersey. I will do it. If he comes back, I'll get it. You'll get money from me NIL-wise because I'll buy your jersey if you come back. It might be extortion. I don't think it's extortion. Bribery. I will buy your jersey if you come back, Jahad. It's a promise. It's called a promise. I'll buy you the jersey if you come back. Because guess what? Jahad Pettiford, legend in the making. Legend in, like, you know, put the statue right next to Janai. He comes back. Just do that. Come back, Jahad. Come back. Trying to win a championship for basketball. Hopefully football too, but mostly basketball right now. So, yeah. With that being said, thanks for tuning in to some of the College League podcast. Of course, I'm Dylan. I will take on Twitter. Of course, I'm on Instagram as well. I Dylan DYLNLARCK. Also got me on TikTok. I'm trying to post a little weekly on there. Got me on there at your boy the Tank at YABOY the Tank. Also labeled as Tank Talks Football. I'll be trying to post on there and on another YouTube channel I am starting called Tank Talks Football as well, where instead of talking about Auburn, I'll be talking about all of the SEC. Of course, the football is my passion. Love it to death. I hate Alabama and Georgia, but I will still talk about them as unbiased as I possibly can when it comes to that, which I've been doing for years. Of course, SEC FB_news on Instagram is what I used to run before I kind of had to retire it to put full focus on the college loop. But now I got some time opening up going forward. So now I have opportunities, more creative opportunities to do the loop and other avenues of creation. So stay tuned for that. Of course, when that whole thing gets like finished, you'll know. I'll share it in the video. I'll do all that jazz to make sure it gets shit out there. Of course, you know, I love having all the fans from every single SEC team around, but of course the Auburn fans are the ones that are the nicest to me because they know I'm an Auburn fan. So with that, thanks for tuning in to some of the College League podcast. Of course, check us out right here on YouTube. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, leave your thoughts. Who is the most underrated Auburn Tiger going into this upcoming football season? Let me know in the comment section below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Can't overstate that enough. Audio version of the show also available on Spotify, Podcast, Google Podcasts, and Amazon Music. And, of course, right here on YouTube, where you should like, comment, subscribe. But with that being said, thanks for tuning in to the stuff of the College Loop podcast. And as always, War Eagle.